Hello, friends. We are just waiting for more participants to enter. We will just start within a minute or so. A very warm welcome to all of you. Myself, Dr. Rakesh Agrawal, Secretary General, Risk Management Association of India and Editor, Insurance Times. So, welcome you all to this live webinar on motor policy exclusions and insight for insurance surveyors. The surveyors and loss assessors play a very vital role in the whole value chain of insurance. Quick and reasonable claim settlement is the end objective of an insurance company, and surveyors are the most important part of this whole process. So continuous education and training is a must for all surveyors to keep them updated with the changing scenario and the updates happening around. The technology is changing very fast. They need to adopt technology. They need to adopt new measures through which survey may be done at a faster pace, reports may be delivered at a faster notice. So while assessing claims, surveyors should properly justify the claim acceptance or rejection. And since surveyors have a lot of knowledge about the subject matter, they can also make recommendation as how to improve the future risk so that loss does not occur. This will certainly add value to their report. And based on this reports, underwriters may take decisions of whether or not to offer insurance to the client or what terms and conditions needs to be modified. Each case dealt by a surveyor can be a case study. So if we can just estimate the number of surveyors that are working, and if every case I think is unique, it has unique features, unique circumstances in which loss occurs. So you are sitting on a huge base of new studies. So surveyors can play a very vital role in this whole risk management and risk assessment process. Our today's speaker is Mr. Ramesh Jalan. Mr. Jalan is a graduate mechanical engineer from Birla Institute of Technology, Mishra, Ranchi, and has been fully devoted to the profession of loss survey and loss assessment. He is invited as guest faculty by National Center of Insurance Learning, Narendrapur, and other private and public sector insurance companies. For several years, he has been diligently playing the role of guest faculty at training workshops and seminar organized by erstwhile Isha and ISLA at various places. His experience in survey of motor vehicles and earth-moving equipment is wide-ranging. So before I hand over the session to Mr. Jalan, let me briefly introduce our organization. Risk Management Association is an NGO engaged in promotion of risk management discipline and culture in India. RMAI has taken this onerous responsibility to create a platform for risk professionals, insurance professionals, corporates to exchange news and resources relating to risk management and encourage research and development, provide certification to members, and provide various courses on risk management. So surveyors also can play a very important role. They can also contribute articles, and we can act as a platform for research and development. So basically, this is a list of our governing council's members who are in our board. We have a lot of people from the industry who are quite knowledgeable and have a lot of experience from the industry. Again, we have a lot of experts from the industry who are expert in their individual field, which includes insurance, banking, general insurance, life insurance. We have branches in overseas countries also. We offer a lot of membership categories which anyone can take. And this is an important one. We have created a knowledge resource center at our portal, rmaindia.org. So there we give link of various risk management resources, link to international bodies, various videos related to risk management, then some sample risk management, risk inspection reports. We have tied up with several institutes for international certification. We organized this seminar last year in Mumbai. This was quite a good one. So again, this year we plan to organize, but maybe would be a little late due to COVID. We published this quarterly bulletin. And we have two knowledge portals. One is bimabazar.com and bankingfinance.in. So here also we have a lot of information related to insurance. So you can anytime log in and have the informations. So for any detail, you can visit our website, rmaindia.org, for the details. So now I'd like to hand over the session to Mr. Jalan. Mr. Jalan, if you can please take over.
Thank you, Dr. Rakesh. Thank you very much. I'm indeed delighted to be face to face with almost 400 friends of ours. It's indeed a unique experience for me, especially that we are following lockdown conditions and maintaining social distances. In these conditions, to have an audience of 400 people is a pride moment for me. We have been taking up various subjects in the field of insurance, especially in motor insurance. This particular subject we have in hand right now deals with some basic concepts and basic points of an insurance policy, a motor policy, for example. Today's topic is purely connected with policy exclusions. If you are practicing surveys, I'm sure you definitely come across with such exclusions. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So we come across various exclusions in a motor policy. In the motor policy, there is no specific list in one place which gives you all the exclusions. And therefore, to understand exclusions, one really has to go through the policy right from beginning to the end, including all IMTs, including all terms and conditions. What I have tried to do is compile these in one place. You have a slide presentation in front of you. First of all, we'll go through general list of exclusions we have in the policy. You can see in front of you, the important exclusions are consequential loss, depreciation, wear and tear, mechanical or electrical breakdown, failures or breakages, loss of or damages to accessories by burglary, housebreaking or theft, unless such insured vehicle is stolen at the same time, applying to commercial vehicle, damage caused by overloading or strain of the insured vehicle, again commercial vehicle. I'm just going through the points right now. We'll go into the details later. Continuing with that, pre-existing losses. There is a policy condition which says that notice shall be given in writing to the company immediately upon the occurrence of any accidental loss or damage in the event of any claim. It's quoted verbatim from the policy. Another quote from the policy is extension or aggravation of loss or damage. In the event of any accident or breakdown, the vehicle shall not be left unattended without proper precautions being taken to prevent further damage or loss. And if the vehicle be driven before the necessary repairs are effected, any extension of the damage or any further damage to the vehicle shall be entirely at the insured's own risk. Again, I'm repeating, these are the words straightforward from the policy itself. We'll go to the details. We'll dissect everything word by word. More exclusions: gross negligence and lack of care. Again, policy condition: the insured shall take all reasonable steps to safeguard the vehicle from loss or damage and to maintain it in efficient condition. And once again, another policy condition: limitations as to use. The policy covers use of the vehicle for any purpose other than hire or reward carriage of goods, meant for private cars only, other than samples and personal luggage, organized racing, pacemaking, speed testing, reliability trials, any purpose in connection with motor trade. These are mainly for private cars. And then there are certain IMTs which decide the exclusions of the policy. And these are 21, 23, and 47. After going through the list available with us from the policy itself, we go into the detail of that to understand the nuances of each term, to understand the meaning of each term. Let's come to mechanical or electrical breakdown, failures or breakages. The general scenarios we come across from experience, of course, are fatigue, loss of life, inadequate or improper maintenance, operation of vehicle under adverse conditions, erosion, corrosion, or atmospheric effect, negligence or error while repairing vehicle, use of spurious or old parts. Here, fatigue is a very standard technical term. When a particular part is under load for a long period, then gradually it loses its property and fails. So that failure caused due to fatigue. Similarly, failure due to loss of life. The part has lived its useful life. And thirdly, failure due to inadequate or improper maintenance. If the maintenance is not proper, the vehicle is not properly taken care of, there can be failures or breakdowns. Then is operation of vehicle under adverse conditions. What could be the adverse conditions here? Not rains, not storms. The other adverse condition you can think of is, for example, you must be seeing these advertisements in TV nowadays for SUVs. They show a vehicle crossing a river, a vehicle going off the road and trying to cross a valley or something where there is no road. So these can be termed as adverse conditions. In these adverse conditions, failures take place, mechanical or electrical. Erosion, corrosion due to atmospheric condition, corrosion due to local conditions, pollutions in the atmosphere. These also cause failures. Negligence or error while repairing vehicle. If there is a improper repairs, while carrying out the repair, the part has not been fitted properly, or by using improper parts or fasteners, failures may take place. Similarly, use of spurious or old parts also lead to failures. Any of these factors contributing to a failure will lead to a claim, maybe an accident or maybe a fire, and such claims and accidents are to be considered with some exceptions. We'll come to that later. A very commonly used term in the insurance policy is consequential loss. A consequential loss is not admissible in a motor claim. But then, in my opinion, this term consequential loss is not properly understood by many people. Is loss sustained by a vehicle after an accident consequential loss? The vehicle has met with an accident, and because of that, some loss has taken place. If the vehicle is run or something, is that a consequential loss? Let's try to understand the meaning of consequential loss. The dictionary meaning of consequential is resultant, following as a consequence or result of something. It also means important. It also means of considerable importance or significance. But then, in insurance policy, the meaning of consequential is different. It means arising as indirect cost, describes costs, loss, or damage beyond the market value of the object lost or damaged, including other indirect costs arising out of an event. Consequential loss is not admissible in a motor claim. What we mean is, as far as the motor policy is concerned, a consequential loss is a loss not suffered by the insured due to damage sustained by the vehicle. That is not a consequential loss. The consequential loss is a loss suffered by the insured indirectly after an accident. You can have examples. Because the vehicle is damaged in an accident, it's not available for the commercial purpose. He cannot make profit out of it. He cannot deploy the vehicle for its operation. If it's a private car, the car is not available. The person has to use public transport. So all these costs or losses are called consequential losses. And these consequential losses are not covered by the insurance policy, motor insurance policy. Next is loss of accessories by burglary, etc. This particular condition is meant for commercial vehicle. Loss of or damage to accessories by burglary, housebreaking, or theft, not admissible unless vehicle is stolen at the same time. Here, one has to understand the meaning of accessory. Accessory is one which can be added to something else to make it more useful, versatile, or attractive, or a subordinate or supplementary part, object, or the like, used mainly for convenience, attractiveness, safety, etc. A battery is not an accessory. A headlight is not an accessory. But then definitely, if you have fitted an audio system, if you have fitted fancy lights, fancy horns, these become accessory. And in a commercial vehicle, loss or damage to accessory by burglary or theft or housebreaking is admissible only if the vehicle is stolen and recovered without these parts. So this term of accessory and applicability of that term to commercial vehicle has to be understood in the right perspective. Extension or aggravation of loss or damage. Now, this is the difference between consequential loss and extension or aggravation of loss. We generally use the word consequential loss actually meaning extension of loss. If a loss is sustained due to use of vehicle after accidental damages, a loss or damage caused by a vehicle is left unattended without proper precautions being taken to prevent further damage or loss. But the main condition is the subsequent loss essentially should be attributable to damages of previous loss. Suppose you have a car. The car met with an accident. The door was damaged, or maybe the fender was damaged, and you continue using the car. The car has another collision in some other part of the car body. That cannot be termed an extension of loss. It is a second accident, not an extension of previous accident. So both the damages can be treated as two different accidents and as two claims. But suppose the car has sustained damages in its suspension. The car is still being driven. And then because of that damage, the car meets with further accident and further loss. But that is termed extension of loss. So this fine division between extension of loss or aggravation of loss and a second accident must be properly understood. And there is no doubt about it that if you can establish that a particular loss or particular damage is an extension of the previous damage, or caused by the previous damage, then that damage is not admissible in a motor policy. IMT 21. Here the policy wordings are very clear. Except in total loss of vehicle, the insurer is not liable under Section 1 of the policy. What is Section 1? If you have gone through the policy meticulously, you'll remember that Section 1 of the policy deals with loss sustained by a vehicle with various risk covers. External accidental impact, fire, explosion, submergence, inundation, various risks are defined there. So except in case of total loss, under Section 1, the insurer will not be liable for loss or damages to lamps, tires, tubes, mudguards, bonnet side parts, bumpers, and paintwork. This IMT has many a time created confusions in the minds of several people because of certain lacuna in the policy wording. These wordings I have taken from one particular set of policy. It says lamps, tires, tubes, mudguards, bonnet, side parts, bumpers, and paintwork. Among lamps, tires, tubes, mudguards, bonnet, side parts, there is no punctuation at all. It's a continuous sentence. So at times, insurers or even surveyors start having a doubt whether bonnet is also not covered if IMT 21 is available there. It has to be understood that bonnet is not an independent word here. It was erroneous that in this particular print of policy, there was no conjunction between bonnet and side parts. In fact, bonnet side part is one term. The right method would have been after lamps a comma, after tires, comma, tires and tubes, comma, mudguards, comma, bonnet side parts, comma, then bumpers and paintwork. What is a bonnet side part? Nowadays, in most of the vehicles, you don't have a component called bonnet side part. But if you have an experience on Tata vehicles, Tata SE vehicle, the two sides where the headlights are fitted on the two sides of the bonnet, those two sides were known as bonnet side parts. And that is the reason, in addition to mudguard, the bonnet side part term was included here. In some policy documents I have seen, they have put bonnet hyphen side parts. Even that is confusing, whether they are meaning bonnet and side parts, or bonnet side parts, or bonnet or side parts. The fact is, it is one component, bonnet side parts, which are something similar to mudguards or fenders. So in 21, all kinds of lamps, tires and tubes, all mudguards, whether you call them mudguards, you call them fenders, you call them bonnet side parts, they are not covered. Bumpers, not covered. And paintwork. Nowadays, in addition to bumpers, you have FUPDs and SUPDs also, RUPDs also. Now, these are nothing but additional bumpers. The function of bumpers, whether it's in front or rear or sides, are virtually the same. And the policy doesn't say front bumpers or rear bumpers. So in my opinion, even FUPDs or RUPDs or SUPDs fall under the category of bumpers, and therefore, under IMT 21, they are not admissible in a motor claim. FUPDs, front under protection device, RUPDs, rear under protection devices, SUPDs, side under protection devices. These are also excluded as far as IMT 21 are concerned. And of course, in addition to that, the insured has to bear some excess, which is defined as per the type of vehicle. It could be 500, 1,000, 1,500, like that. So this is the total wording of IMT 21. Now, after IMT 21, you have an IMT, related IMT here, which is called IMT 23. And the wording, as per policy, is in consideration of additional premium subject to conditions A, B, and C here under loss of or damage, excluding theft under any circumstances, to lamps, tire tubes, mudguards, bonnet side parts, bumpers, headlights, and paintwork of damaged portion only is covered, provided the vehicle is also damaged at the same time. What they have done is all the parts excluded under 21 have been given a cover with certain conditions. But they are given a cover only for an accident, not for theft. And the second condition is, if only lamp is broken, or if only mudguard is damaged, or if only bumper is damaged, then the claim is not admissible. The vehicle is also damaged at the same time. In addition to damage to other parts of the vehicle, if you have a damage to lamps, tires and tubes, mudguards, now here you find bonnet stroke side part. It's actually bonnet side parts, one single phrase. Bumpers, headlights and paintwork of damaged portion only is covered. So 21 is a modification of 23 is a modification of 21. 23 is not a negation of 21. As far as the excess part of 21 is concerned, 500,000 or 1,500, that remains in force, but only it changes the treatment of these parts considered under 21 and make them admissible with certain conditions. Now let's try to understand the conditions. They are subjected to depreciation as per the schedule provided in section 1. That means based on life or based on type of material, FRP, rubber, plastic, any other material, glass. In respect of paintwork also, for the damaged portion only, shall also be as per schedule provided in section 1 of the policy. Because nowadays in section 1 of the policy, you have depreciation applicable to paint also. So therefore, under 23, depreciation is also applicable. Beyond that, further deduction is there. So if you have a claim which involves bumper, mudguard, plus your fender, headlight, first of all, you have to deduct the depreciation as applicable based on the material of construction, painting as applicable, which is generally 12.5%. And then whatever amount you get, 50% of that is acceptable in the claim or admissible in the claim. One thing which is not specified here, but which is implied, when you are talking about loss, it's not only cost of parts, it's also labor charges. So any labor charge related to any of these parts, either for replacement or repairs, also attract 50% deduction. I reiterate, this condition is not only for admission of parts or cost of parts, but also apply to labor charges, because the term used is assessed loss, not cost of parts. An assessment of loss includes cost of replacement of bumper, cost of replacement of fender or mudguard, or cost of repairing a fender or a mudguard, cost of replacement of headlight. So labor charges also will attract 50% deduction. There is no depreciation on labor charges. And the third condition IMT 23 says is no deductible other than those mentioned in A or B above shall be applicable. Sometimes people say that no deduction means that excess of 500,000 or 1,500 is not applicable. No, that's not right. No deductible other than those mentioned in A and B. Whatever is mentioned in A or B, nothing beyond this is required for IMT 23. But since IMT 23 is not negating 21, it's not overriding 21 in totality, so the compulsory excess provided in 21 will remain in force. So that will remain as it is, whether 500 or 1,000 or 1,500 or any your excess taken in addition to that compulsory excess. Now let's come to another very interesting endorsement, IMT 47. Now this application of this endorsement has been having some controversy in past. Whether it's an optional endorsement or it's a compulsory endorsement. If you go through the wording of the policy, the meaning is absolutely clear. There should not be any doubt about it. But then, even then, some people do have doubt about it. First of all, IMT 47 is a compulsory addition for specified equipment, and the list is given in the policy itself. Mobile cranes, drilling rigs, mobile plants, excavators, navies, shovels, grabs, riggers. Mobile cranes, simple. Drilling rigs, we don't come across very many in this part of the country. Possibly Assam people may have such equipment frequently coming for claims. Mobile plants, excavators, navies are something similar to shovels, mechanical shovels, grabs. It's an equipment used for grabbing equipment for shifting from one place to another. And riggers. Riggers are something which are used for breaking a surface. So all these equipment which fall under the category of miscellaneous class of vehicles in a motor policy, they are tracked IMT 47. IMT 47 is compulsorily given there, but then with one rider. Plain IMT 47 says that insurer be under no liability under section 1 of the policy for loss or damage resulting from overturning arising out of the operation as a tool of which vehicle or of plant forming part of such vehicle or attached here thereto. A little bit of legal kind of a terminology, but the meaning is under this endorsement, any of these plants or machineries, when they are being used as an operational tool, that means they are being used for the purpose that machine is. For example, the crane is being used to lift something, and while lifting it overturns, or the excavator is being used for excavating earth in a colliery or in a quarry, and during that process it overturns. So any of these machines, if it overturns while it was being used as a tool of trade, operational tool, then the claim is not payable. We have had controversies in these also. I'll give an example of a recent experience I had. There's an item called mobile plants here. Now, mind you, the policy very specifically says that while being used as a tool of trade, the claim is not payable. I had a machine, very well-known machine. It's called transit mixer. You must have seen transit mixers rolling all around the places in various cities and various places. You have a big drum which keeps on rotating at a very slow speed. At the site where it is loaded, you load concrete or mixed concrete or concrete, stone chips and water, if required sand in the drum. You mix it thoroughly, then you take it to some other place. Now the controversy is related to a particular transit mixer which was moving from one place to another. And for some reason, it went out of control and overturned. It didn't have any additional premium paid. I'll explain that also in IMT 47 for admission of overturning loss. So initially, the insurance company said the claim should not be payable. Since overturning is not covered in case of mobile plants, the claim should not be payable. My take was that when the entire machine, the transit mixer, is moving from one place to another, it's not being used as a machine, it's not being used as an operational tool. It's merely being used as a transport vehicle. Their argument was the drum rotates. Yes. When there is material inside the drum rotates at a very slow speed. Then my take was the drum is rotating merely to ensure that, ensure that the mixture of concrete doesn't set, doesn't harden. It keeps on getting mixed. That is not as a plant operation. It's only a part of transportation operation. So it cannot be treated as overturning as a tool of trade or as an operational machine. We had a long discussion at various levels, even going up to the RM level and senior manager level. And I kept on insisting on this. Then they said, then why is it called a machine? a plant, mobile plant. I said when the machine or the mixer, your transit mixer, is stationed at a particular site and you are pouring concrete in it, you are mixing concrete in it before transportation. At that point of time, it's being used as a tool of trade. And then second point I said was, when the machine is moving, although drum is rotating at a slow speed, there is no contribution of rotating drum as far as the overturning is concerned. Overturning is taking place mainly because of some other conditions, road conditions, driving conditions, or some failures. It has no relation with the drum rotating. After long discussion, the thing was accepted, the claim was paid. Then you have certain cases where the crane is moving with a particular piece of material from one spot to another. Again, it's in transportation, not being lifted. And if because of terrain or something, the crane overturns, the claim cannot be denied. It's not overturning while operating as a tool. And then here, in the second part of the condition is, except for loss or damage arising directly from fire, explosion, self-ignition, or lightning, or burglary, housekeeping, or theft. In these cases, that overturning as tool of trade does not apply. If there is a fire, machine overturns, there is no problem at all. The claim is admissible. And as I said, this particular condition is an integral part of the motor policy for the specified types of vehicles. But when additional premium is paid, claims arising out of overturning when being used as a tool of trade are admissible. The relevant clause of claim not admissible is then omitted. In underwriting, you'll find policies where IMT 47 is given even for other machines, or at times IMT 47 is given as claim not admissible despite additional premium being paid. So this particular point has to be sorted out, clarified by the insurer before any claim is admitted. Now, these are the general exceptions available in the policy, exclusions available in the policy. In addition to these, if you consider the risks being covered by a motor insurance policy, number of exclusions do arise. Their exclusion can be in totality or applicable to a particular part or an aggregate. Suppose a car catches fire and you are in a position to determine that where the fire originated. Maybe it's the wiring harness, maybe the battery itself, maybe the spillage of fuel from a particular component. Then we all know that the exclusion applies to the cause of loss. So that particular item is eliminated from the claim. Rest of the claim is payable. Another exclusion, which is a derived exclusion, not specified exclusion, is relating to external accidental impact. If you go through the risk covers being given in a motor policy in section 1, this item is a bit of controversial item. External accidental means, unless the vehicle has an impact with an external object, the claim is not payable under this particular risk cover. At times you get claims where the external accidental impact part is not there, but the loss is very high, and the insured is not able to comprehend the meaning of external accidental claims, and the job of a surveyor becomes very tough. A common example is of a tipper. We come across several claims of a tipper where the tipper has overturned. And mind you, in case of tipper, 47 is not applicable. It's not in the list of equipment covered in IMT 47. You see the list on top? Tipper is not there. So some people have that confusion. No, tipper doesn't fall under 47. Normal circumstances, tipper overturning claims are payable without any additional premium payment. But what happens is, suppose the tipper is being used, is being evacuated. The material in the tipper body is being thrown out. Body is lifted. Sometimes the operators move the tipper forward and backward. Sometimes they give a jerk to the lift cylinder to release the material stuck to the tipper body. Sometimes the surface is not even and the tipper overturns. Overturn claim is payable, there's no problem at all. In very many cases, we find that during overturning, the lip cylinder or jack in the local parlance gets bent or even broken. Now, what happens to the claim? There is a lot of confusion in that. We should not forget that this claim is related to external accidental impact only. There is no other risk cover applicable to this. Now, once we say external accidental impact, then the claim will commence only after the tipper hits the ground or any other object external to the tipper. Now, if before hitting, the lip cylinder is bent or broken, then definitely that item cannot be admitted in the motor policy, in a motor claim. Not only that, try to visualize that the tipper body has been lifted. The rear end of the tipper is having hinge and it's hinged to the frame. There is a subframe mounted in the main frame. Because the tipper body is lifted and it is overturning, the rear hinge pulls or twists the frame, subframe and the main frame, and they also get bent. All these damages which are occurring during the process of overturning are not admissible in the claim. They come under exclusions. After the ground is hit, and then only any damage takes place. Maybe a damage to the tipper body, maybe a damage to the cabin wall or any other component. From there onwards, the claim starts. What we call a chain of event. The chain of event for admissible part of a claim commences only after the subject vehicle, in this case tipper, hits an external object accidentally, and then damage starts taking place. Once the chain of event ends, all the damage within the chain are admissible. Nothing before the chain has commenced. Some people ask me, how you determine that this particular lip cylinder is bent before the tipper is overturned? There is a thumb rule. If the bending of lip cylinder is in the direction of overturning, it is definitely bent during overturning process. Try to visualize. Tipper body is lifted. It is overturning on one side, pulling the lip cylinder with it. So the lip cylinder will bend towards the direction of the overturning only. So this will give you an idea whether this particular damage has taken place before or after the overturning, after the vehicle tipper has hit the ground. It is very uncommon that tipper hitting the ground will bend the cylinder. Very uncommon. I have seen videos of several accidents where a large tipper, maybe a capacity of 30-40 tons, is overturning, simply overturned on the ground. Nothing happened to the tipper. They simply put it back on the wheels, lowered the tipper body, drove the vehicle away. Nothing happened to it. So the direction of bending of the lip cylinder, the direction of twisting of the frame, again in the same, the rotation of direction of twisting of the frame will be same as the direction of overturning of the tipper. They will tell you that these damages have taken place before the vehicle hit the ground and therefore they're not admissible. So briefly, these are all the exclusions we come across, the special conditions we come across. I request Dr. Rakesh to throw open the questions. We can have a question and answer session.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Jalan, for a comprehensive insight. So now we will take few questions. We have a lot of them. The first question is from Mr. Lavkesh Goyal. Under which policy exclusion is hydrolocking of an engine? Hydrostatic losses are being denied by the insurers. And if hydrolocking is not considered as an exclusion, on what ground IRDA has permitted an add-on cover for the same?
Mr.
Under which policy exclusion hydrolocking of an engine?
Who is the person asking the question?
Mr. Lavkesh Goyal.
Mr. Goyal. Yeah, it's a very interesting question, very controversial subject, a debatable subject. Before the add-on policies came, Engine Secure, etc., we had a standard method of treating hydrostatic locking cases. What is hydrostatic locking? In brief, it's merely entry of water into an engine cylinder crankcase above the piston head, which during compression stroke gets trapped above the piston, creates a buckling force on the connecting rod, which gets bent. It's as simple as that. Now, one has to understand, number one is, inundation is admissible in the claim in a standard policy. Hydrostatic locking generally takes place in inundation only. Inundation water can enter in the engine. The question being raised by the insurance companies used to be, why should one drive a car through an inundated road or street? The answer would be, generally the people would answer that he cannot abandon the car somewhere. He has to take the car away. And that's where the debate starts. At times it's said, the insured says, I had no way to find out how deep was the water at the place where the water was accumulated. I thought it was shallow water, I would go without any problem. At times the insurer says that you thought I cannot abandon the car, but after the hydrostatic locking took place, what did you do? You had to abandon the car. You had to leave the car there and go and seek help. So all these debates have always been there, and mostly hydrostatic locking cases were been denied on these grounds only, that insured had not taken proper care. Only yesterday, I was going through your ombudsman judgment on this issue only. Someone posted in WhatsApp or somewhere. And the judgment was that insured acted prudently. He wanted to prevent further loss of the vehicle. He therefore tried to start. There was a case of starting in this case. He tried to start the car, and therefore hydrostatic locking took place. The claim has to be paid. He has acted prudently. In brief, that's a judgment. Now the insurance company has to accept it. The problem is the perception of an insurer, perception of an insured or a surveyor or a legal body are different. So judgments are different. Possibly for this reason only, IRDA accepted the add-on of Engine Secure. That if you have Engine Secure and pay extra premium, all these doubts are gone. Hydrostatic locking claim, money, you will get the claim. So this was the background of the whole thing.
Yeah. So next question is from Mr. Pramod. Whether spare wheel is accessory or standard part?
Spare wheel is considered as an accessory.
Okay. And next question from Mr. Shankar Singh. Can a sound system originally fitted in the commercial vehicle may be considered as accessories?
No, not at all. Basic concept is anything coming with the vehicle from the manufacturer is not accessory.
Okay. Next is from Ms. Swaran Sarma, Mr. Maybe. Is theft only of batteries is payable under commercial policy?
Yes, it is definitely payable. Mr. Sharma, battery is not an accessory. It comes fitted to the vehicle, not something added on by the insurer or the owner of the vehicle.
Okay. We have another question from Mr. Sanjay Kumar. What about the losses sustained during lifting of vehicle?
Now, here again, there is a gray area or debatable area. There is a very old Supreme Court judgment that as soon as the vehicle meets with an accident, it comes under so-called legal possession of the insurance company. Lifting of a vehicle or recovery of a vehicle or retrieval of a vehicle is part of the whole claim process. During lifting, if any further loss takes place, the claim is payable, unless one can establish that it was an independent kind of an accident. Otherwise, mere lifting process causing any damage to the vehicle, it's admissible in the claim.
Okay. Next, we have question from Mr. Brij Bihari Raj. If in tipper failure of jack causes further loss to other parts like chassis, tipper bed, tipper body, will it be treated as consequential loss?
Now, I want to correct you. Don't use the word consequential here. As I've explained, consequential loss does not pertain to the vehicle. It pertains to other losses of the insured, commercial loss or vehicle loss or anything else. Now, jack failure is causing what? Because of jack failure, the vehicle is overturned. So after overturning, if it has hit the ground or any other object, a rock or anything, all damages starting from that point onwards are admissible within this claim.
Okay. So Mr. Raj has again asked, will IMT 47 apply in commercial vehicle policy if it is issued to mobile plant crane?
The mobile cranes are covered in 47. It has to be applied. Mobile cranes, in case of mobile cranes, IMT 47 has to be applied as a compulsion. And there, if you pay additional premium, then overturning claims are admissible. Otherwise, not.
Mr. Binodanand Jha has a question. In case of aggravated loss in an accident where the road robbers had put boulders on the road to block vehicle for road robbery, and insured moving his car ramped over the boulder and crosses over, what would you call it?
External accidental impact.
Okay. And then from Mr. Mrinal Pathak, in case of tipper, if overturns during unloading, then it is payable or not?
Yeah, because on tipper, IMT 47 is not applied. In front of you, you have the screen. It has mobile cranes, drilling rigs, mobile plants, excavators, navies, shovels, grabs, and riggers. Tipper is not there. So in case of tipper, IMT 47 is not applicable. So any overturning claim of tipper are payable.
Okay. Mr. Biman Banerjee, if the ground level is uneven and tipper capsized during lifting materials, then what would be the status of the claim?
Please come again.
Yeah, if the ground level is uneven and tipper capsized during lifting materials, then what would be the status of the claim?
Tipper capsized during lifting of material or discharging material?
Here he has asked lifting material, during lifting materials.
Tipper doesn't lift material. It must be discharging material.
Okay.
Tipper lifted. Again, the same thing applies. Tipper is overturning. So after it has hit something, any damage accruing after that will be admissible in the claim.
Okay. Next, cracking. Mr. Mahabir has asked this one. Cracking of chassis without any damage to vehicle is payable or not?
I think the answer lies within the question itself, Mr. Mahabir. You have said without any accident. So unless you have an accident, how can you have a claim in motor policy? Unless any of the risks being covered in the motor policy applies, the claim is not admissible. Next.
We have a question from Mr. Ramanjit Singh. A mobile hydra is traveling with lifting load in its boom and overturned. There is no IMT 47 endorsement. Do we consider this case as working tool or not?
There are 2 points here. Don't say IMT 47 is not there. In case of mobile cranes, IMT 47 has to be there, either without additional premium or with additional premium. If it is without additional premium, where overturning claim is not admissible when the crane is working as a tool of trade, in this particular case, the crane is holding the material in such a manner that it can move, travel. Now, mind you, a crane has a capacity, load carrying capacity. When a crane is moving, the boom has to be in a lower condition. It cannot be on top condition, straight forward, vertical condition. When the boom is in a very inclined position, its load carrying capacity decreases drastically. There is a chart available with every crane that what is the capacity of the crane in this particular position of the boom. If within the load carrying capacity of that angle, the crane is holding something with it, is properly tied, and is moving from one spot to another, not moving on public road, maybe one spot to another for short distance, and it overturns, the claim is admissible.
I think we will take just one or two more questions. Time is running out.
Yeah.
Next question from Mr. Ranbir. If insured purchases nil depreciation with IMT 23 policy, then insurer pay complete amount of headlight, paint, tire, tube.
It varies from insurer to insurer. For example, United India, if you have nil as well as 23, you get 100%. In case of National, you get the reimbursement of the depreciation, not the 23 deduction. So you have to consult the policy document or add-on document of the particular insurer and then take a call. It is not standard for every insurer.
Okay. Again, there's a question from Mr. Yogendra. In mobile crane, the hoist bent due to sudden power failure. Whether the claim is payable?
Hoist bent?
Bent.
Power failure, hoist bent? I'm not clear on the question.
In mobile crane, the hoist bent due to sudden power failure. Whether the claim is payable? I think maybe the question is...
I don't know how power failure can cause hoist bending.
We can take up, I think, the last question by Mr. Vernon. In case of taxis under commercial package policy, what is the seating capacity for which IMT 21 is applicable and for which IMT 23 to cover IMT 21? Any connection? IMT 21.
Normally, in case of taxis where the passenger carrying capacity, not seating capacity, passenger carrying capacity is up to 6. You have IMT 22 applicable, not 21 or 23. But in case of vehicles where passenger carrying capacity is more than 6, for example, sumo, not the driver inclusion, only passenger carrying capacity in addition to driver is more than 6, then that particular commercial vehicle will attract IMT 21. And then you have to take 23 for coverage of headlight, bumper, mudguard, etc.
Okay. I think we can take this last question from Mr. Rameshwar Dayal Bansal.
Yeah.
His question is, if vehicle met with an accident and only front bumper and headlight damaged, then can we allow parts under IMT 23 if covered?
No, you can't, because I have shown that slide to you that there should be a damage to the accident vehicle at the same time. See the bottom part of the last line of the condition. Provided the vehicle is also damaged at the same time. Damage to only bumper, headlight, tire, or mudguard will not be admissible in the claim unless they are damaged with some other parts of the vehicle in an accident.
So I think we come to the close of the session. Thank you, Mr. Jalan, for wonderful insights and taking so many questions and agreeing for this webinar in such a short time within a day.
Yeah.
And special thanks to all the participants who attended in a short notice. There were some maybe connection problems to some of the attendees, but this is the nothing can be done in this lockdown. You have this connectivity problem. Everyone is using internet, but still you will be getting a replay video of this session in your mail ID maybe after a day. So you can go through it, and there I think you will have an uninterrupted video. So thanks again, everyone. And we will be back again with some other program, maybe in very near future. So thanks, Mr. Jalan, and thanks everyone.
Stay safe, take care of yourself and your family.
And everyone, please do take care of your family. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.